This is the last Sunday of the year. And typically, in most churches, not only Orthodox Christians, but all Christians gather to make an assessment of their past year, the year that is closing, 2018, and oftentimes they begin to think about, well, what are their resolutions, what are the promises, what are the things they want to change and alter, make better in their lives. I'm going to be turning 65 2019. I remember when I was a young boy, I said, I had the date 2020. I said, oh my God, that is so far away. And before you know it, here it is. So we look back in our lives and we look at our resolutions. Thank God I don't have the lists of resolutions that I had. How many have we kept and how many have we not kept? Which is very interesting. And of those resolutions we have all made around the New Year's time, how many resolutions do we find we put on the list every year and we can't keep it? We keep it for a few days, maybe a few weeks, maybe if we're lucky a couple of months, and then we slip back into our old ways. But it is an opportunity for us to sit down quietly, prayerfully, and think about who we are as individuals, because life, as you know, goes by so fast. And we look back and we don't want to have regrets about things we wanted to do, things we wanted to do for ourselves, characteristics about ourselves we wanted to change, to make better, and look back and say, I didn't do it. I wasn't able to achieve that. It's interesting that in the Orthodox Church, the Sunday after Christmas, typically the Sunday before New Year's, that Sunday, is the day in which we focus, typically, we focus on two individuals. We focus on Joseph and Herod. Herod, you know, is that criminal. He was the emperor at the time, the birth of Jesus, who wanted to destroy Jesus, wanted to kill him because of who Jesus was said to be, who this baby was said to be. So he pretended that he cared, told the wise men, when you find out where he is, let me know. So I too can come and worship him. But as I said last week, in reality, Herod did not want to come and worship Jesus, but to destroy him. He was so threatened by him. Herod wanted to be the king. If you look at Herod's life, you will find that he was a very, very evil man. He murdered his own wife. He murdered his own son because he was afraid they were going to conspire against him and take over the throne. He murdered other individuals around him. He murdered all of the wise men, not the three wise men, but the wise men in the imperial palace that gave the wise men the information. He was furious, it says in the Gospel this morning of St. Matthew. And what did he do in his fury, in his anger? He decided that he would lash out and kill every child that was born up until 2 years of age. I mean, can you imagine now, in that area, the soldiers going around and snatching children out of people's homes and murdering them, killing them? The crying, the weeping of the mothers. And that's why in the Gospel, as it says, it was like to fulfill the prophet who said that there was wailing, Rachel weeping for her children. The historians say, some, that up to 14,000 children were killed, murdered, during this period of time. Again, 2 years of age and younger. Most people, most historians, however, think that that's exaggerated. So the number 14,000, because there was probably 1,000 to 2,000 people living in that area. So how can there be 14,000 children if there's only 1,000 or 2,000 people there? Even if you were to multiply it exponentially, you still would not get up to 14,000. So why 14,000? And why in the Synexarion of the church does it say 14,000? And if you do research, it'll say 14,000. Because according to the Jews, the number 14 and the number 14,000 is multiples of 7 and multiples of 12. And it means murdering that goes on from now to eternity. In other words, it means the killings that went on continue to go on. It's a theological number. That's why in the book of Revelation, the same number is given. But the number again is multiplied, and it's 144,000 people. Whereas in the death, the murder is 14,000. And there's all kinds of numerological theology in the Old Testament. So the 14,000 represents those who he killed then, and those who he continues to kill. That's the critical, theological, spiritual, deeper element that I want to share with you today. So Herod, although dead, continues to murder children. Now, before you quickly go to abortions, which of course is part of it, that evil, Satan, continues to murder the innocent. There is someone else that Herod wants to murder. Remember in the Bible it says he wanted to kill the child that was born. So hold that on the side there. That's Herod. On the other side it's Joseph in the story. Who's Joseph? Joseph was a caretaker, the husband of Mary. He was a widower, basically took her as his wife. According to tradition, Christian tradition, up until over the Renaissance, it was understood that the Virgin Mary never had other children. We still believe that. There are some who think otherwise, misguidedly think otherwise. She was ever virgin, always Banaia, always a virgin. And he took care of her. But notice, he cared for the child. He was the caretaker of the child. And being warned in a dream that Herod was going to kill the child, to flee to Egypt. And there he took care of the child, using the money that he got from the 3 wise men, the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh, and then came back to Nazareth, where he dwelt, still protecting the child because there were people who were still out to get him, until he grew to maturity, and then Jesus went on his own and offered his ministry. And at the end of his life, they did kill him. Another Herod, if you see. This is all taken by the church theologically. So this is the way we are to see it. And some of the hymns hint to this. Jesus is born each year in the manger of our hearts. He's there, and he wants to grow, he wants to mature, he wants to expand his influence on our lives. But when Christ is in us, and he's always in us, there are, as St. Paul says, 2 people fighting constantly. Sarx, the flesh, and the spirit. Always fighting, always in tension. St. Paul says, what is it? I know what I should do, but I don't do what I need to do. I know what I should do, I just can't do it. That's St. Paul saying that. We fight, and that's the reason why, my friends, at New Year's, when we make our lists, and we go into the new year, 2019, there are 2 yous in each and every one of us. In you and me. 2 me's and 2 you's for inside of you. And they're fighting constantly. I want to stop smoking. I want to stop gambling. I want to stop gossiping. I want to stop, I don't know, whatever it is. Whatever habits you have. Maybe you're greedy. Maybe you're, I don't know, lustful. Maybe you're, I don't know what it is. Maybe you're lazy. Maybe you're complacent. Maybe you have no patience. I'm going to crucify that. No more, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to be a happy person. I'm not going to talk about people. I'm going to be all those beautiful things we say. And for a few weeks, as I said, that you, that me, is dead. And we think, we won the battle. Herod is dead. I'm just like Joseph. I'm protecting the child in me. But what happens? Herod resurrects again. He comes back, and before you know it, I can have that second piece of cake. I'll work out a little bit more. Maybe I don't have to work out today. I'll go tomorrow. I'll go twice next week. And before you know it, I was reading this past week, and it said that the highest level of people joining health clubs is during the month of January. Peaks. And the month which is the highest drop is February, 1 month. Just 1 month. And why? Because the Herod in us wants to destroy the child. And the Joseph in us wants to protect the child. And in our lives we fight with tension, constantly. And that's why we need Christ to help us. To help us. There's an interesting movie or series on television, and I know all the young people know it. The older people may not. You might be afraid of it, but it is jam-packed, if you study it, with spiritual meaning. It's called The Walking Dead. Everybody's going. 2010 it started. So 9 years, let's say it's in its 9th season. And the people who are watching it, exponential, they love it. People love it. And again, I'm hesitant to talk to you about it because I don't want to scandalize any of you with it. But it is quite an interesting story. But the story is perfect spiritually. It's perfect. There are people who are walking dead. And the walking dead is not the zombies in the movie. No, they're gone. It's the ones that are in between, the ones that are battling, the ones that are trying to keep themselves from letting go and letting the toxin in them take over. That's exactly what the Bible says. Each and every one of us, there's a battle raging. There's a toxin in us. There's amartia, there's sin. There's something wrong inside of us. And so Jesus had to come, God had to come from heaven to help us, to cure us, to cleanse us. It's interesting that in this Walking Dead, and ever since I've seen that, and I look at it from a spiritual point of view, whenever I meet people, wherever I am, I can't help it. I say to myself, okay, is this a Walking Dead person, or is this person a spiritual person? And it's interesting how if we allow it, if we allow the Herod in us to take over, he'll make us just like that. And instead of killing children, literally, we're going to kill each other with our words, with our actions, with our etc., etc. You know where I'm going with this. Until finally, we are disformed, we are disfigured, we are zombies, in a sense, walking through life dead, no purpose. No purpose. The good news of the church, so we don't have to live like that. We don't have to live like that. And in 2019, we have the opportunity to repent, to confess, and say, no more Herod in my life. Joseph is going to be me in my life, and I'm going to protect the child, the image and likeness of God in me. That's why we are called Theophori when we receive Holy Communion on Sunday. I remember my mother and my father, they said, I've never forgotten this, and of course, as you know, I had 2 uncles that were priests, and a first cousin that was a priest, so my family always priests around. They all would say the same thing. It's more important what you do when you leave the church after you receive Holy Communion than what you do before you receive Holy Communion. Yes, before, prepare. But once you have him in you, you are carrying Jesus out into the world. You are a Christophoros, a Christ carrier. How will you carry him? As Joseph or as Herod? So you see the battle constantly goes on. Let me end by sharing with you, every year at this time, I go onto the Oxford Dictionary website. And on the Oxford Dictionary website, each year, they select the word of the year. The word of the year. So, in 2017, I wrote an article that was published in a number of magazines called Post-Truth. That was the word of the year. That there is no truth anymore. beyond truth. Truth is whatever you make it. So you want to say that you're a woman, you want to say you're a man, you want to say you're a cow, you want to say you're a child, you want to do whatever you want. It's your truth. And you hear it on television. You hear commentators and they say, well, that's your truth. Really. As if there are truths. The truth is no absolute anymore. It varies based on your opinion. That was the word for 2017. Last year, that was 2016. The 2017 word, they do it at the end of the year. The word for 2017 was youthquake. Youthquake. Meaning youth has taken over our society, and before you know it, they're going to lead us in all kinds of crazy places because they don't have the wisdom, they don't have the experience. And in a sense, you see that playing out in many, many ways here. This year, just a couple of weeks ago, they announced the word for 2018. Anybody know what it was? Toxic. Toxic. That we are living in a world of toxicity. In other words, they see that in us, in society, there are poison. We poison each other with our words. We poison each other with our philosophy. We poison each other with our politics. We poison each other with music. We poison each other with television. We poison. They got it right. They said that the number of times people were looking up the word toxin in the Oxford Dictionary in 2018 was the highest increase of any word that they've ever studied. Perfect for us as Christians to talk about we need to detox. But we need to detox ourselves, detox our communities, detox our archdiocese, detox our cities, our nation, our minds. We go back to the battle. Remember Peter. Remember what Jesus says? You are the rock. I'm going to build my church on you. But even Peter had that toxicity in him. I'll never deny you, Lord, he said. Never. Never deny you. When he was arrested, Peter drew his sword. He cut off the ear of one of the soldiers. That same Peter, just a couple of hours later, what did he do? I don't know the man. 3 times denied him. Why? The battle that takes place. So even if Peter had that struggle, how much more we will have that struggle as well. I pray that as we go into 2019, that we become a little more like a rock as opposed to being sand, that we keep some of our spiritual resolutions, so that when we come back around for 2020, which by the way, it's the 35th anniversary of this community's icons. I went around and I noticed 1985. So right, next year, 2020 will be the 35th year. Maybe we should have some kind of a panigiri. I don't know why I was looking over to you. It's a Freudian slip. But I hope and pray that we can all become a rock and be more stable in the way that we live out our lives. God bless you. Merry Christmas, and have a blessed New Year. Please rise.